What an amazing event. This is my first time here, and I saw the video from last year, I think, on the website, and I saw a lot of friends' faces on the video, and I was like, wow, I gotta be there. And then when Erik asked me to speak, I was just extremely honored. But big round of applause for Erik and Meg. I mean, this is a really, really amazing event. I was able to get into some conversation last night that after 3 glasses of wine and a couple of bourbons probably got a little heated, but that's what it's about, right? We have the conversation, we have the dialogue, we learn from each other. Preston was able to change my mind on a couple of things, and so we have those dialogues, and that's what it's all about. So I'm really, really pleased to be here. Just real quick on my background, not a lot, just to why am I even talking to you? I'm a drummer at heart. I left college looking to go join a rock band alternative rock band in Detroit. That was my grand plan, was to sleep on the floor of my friend's house and be a drummer. But I interviewed, somebody talked me into interviewing with a company called Procter & Gamble. And believe it or not, I had no idea who they were at the time in college. They were like, oh, you got an interview with Procter & Gamble? And I told them my story of throwing a big party and convincing my fraternity to shave their heads and get mohawks and earrings for this party. Long story short, they loved it and hired me. And so $36,000 seemed a lot better at the time than being a drummer in a rock band. So spent some time at Procter & Gamble. Then I went on to work for a company called Boston Scientific. They're very well known in the medical device space, the creators of the heart catheter, heart balloons, very innovative. So I spent a lot of time with them really carrying a bag. So I came up through the sales channel of Boston Scientific, spent some time with them in product innovation and development, but more than anything, got to see the healthcare system. I was selling to docs, I was selling to nurses, I was selling to procurement in the big hospitals down in the Miami area. So I spent a lot of time knee deep in that, which was a blessing for me. I then left there and went on to do some consulting, strategic consulting. I worked for a company called AnswerThink at the time. It's now called Hackett, the Hackett Group, which is best practice benchmarking. So they benchmark 40,000 key metrics across a company. And then my team would go in and do the qualitative interviews with the CEO, CFO, the heads of the divisions, and kind of talk about the strategy of the numbers. And then we would present the numbers back to the board, et cetera. It was great. Worked with big companies like IBM, McGraw-Hill, Textron, big conglomerates. And loved it from the learning side, but hated it from the standpoint of, we'd go into these board meetings and present, this is what the data says you should do, and they'd say, we'll work that right into our 5-year plan. Big aircraft carriers, right, take a while to turn, and it was very unsatisfying to be able to come up with the right thing to do. So on the side, I started working with entrepreneurs in the West Palm Beach area. And through my church, I met a guy named Jordan Rubin. And Jordan Rubin is the founder of a company called Garden of Life. And when I met him in 1999, he was doing about a couple $1 million out of his home, selling baggies of probiotic, right? So this was 1999, all right? But he was selling baggies, literally Ziploc bags of probiotic to people, and he was doing $2 million out of his home. He had this grand vision, amazingly grand vision. So I sat down with him and helped him build a 3-year plan. It was really about the 3-year, where do we want to be? He had this amazing vision. What products do you want to be in? What categories? How many people are going to be in the office? How big is the office? Are you going to ship? Are you not going to ship? And we built this plan, and it took about 6 months. And we'd say hi to each other at church. We weren't great friends, but we were friendly. 3 years later, he called me up, and I was still at the consulting firm, and he said, well, we hit the plan. And now what, basically? And so I went to lunch with him, and he had grown from $2 million to $15 million in 3 years. It was his 3-year plan. And he had done everything to a T. It was funny. It was like a roadmap. He had the exact same number of products. He had a 4,000 square foot office. He had 48 employees. It was just right down the line. And so I was young enough and dumb enough to convince him to hire me as CEO. So he was a young, 29-year-old guy. I was 34, 35 at the time. And we went on and we built another 3-year plan. And long story short, we hit that plan and we became number 14 on the Inc. Fastest growing private companies list. And so we grew from about 15 million to about 60 million in 3 years. And I attribute it to the fact that we didn't know any better. we didn't have a clue. However, the first thing I did do, just so you don't think we were crazy, is hire some great lawyers who knew about Deshay. And unfortunately, Jordan at the time didn't really know a deep amount about Deshay. But like a lot of entrepreneurs, it wasn't intentional. It really wasn't intentional. He believed in his product deeply, and he sold that belief. But we cleaned it up. We cleaned up the labels, we cleaned up the catalogs, we cleaned it all up. So I had a great time with Jordan and built it and went crazy. And like entrepreneurs, they get bored of being told no. because we had to take his big vision and lay it on his side, and he really wanted to get it all done by Monday, and so we had some conflict there, but he's still a very good friend. Went to work for a guy named Jethron Phillips, and Jethron Phillips was the founder of Spectrum Oils. So I went to Jethron with an idea, and he's a real pioneer. If you don't know Jethron, he's one of the pioneers in the industry. He's the Northern California commune, early 70s, pressing oil when healthy fats were not healthy. I don't know if you remember, if you're old enough to remember, fats weren't all that healthy in the 70s and 80s, even into the 90s. But he was selling the whole concept of healthy fats. He had just sold Spectrum to Hain Celestial when I met him, and we went out and bought 3 organic ingredient companies and combined them into what's called New Organics. And so I learned the whole organic side of farming, which was fantastic. Very small margins. We were buying from farmers and selling to Nature's Path and Amy's and Petaluma Poultry, the organic feed, and we were doing that. And it was fantastic to learn the farmer side of this. I tell you this story because it kind of all leads to where I am today, which is FoodState. So FoodState is a company that's really about it brings all this together, right? So we're in the business of improving lives by staying true to the intention of food is our mission statement. And we do this by excelling and inspiring with our 2 great brands, Mega Food, as Erik mentioned, on the consumer side, and Innate Response on the practitioner side. It's a very unique company, and my story really connects to it, and I'm a big believer that everything happens for a reason. We're one of the only handful of companies that buys directly from a farmer. So we'll buy 500,000 pounds of organic produce this year directly from farmers. And we take that into our New Hampshire facility, and you can kind of see what we do with it. We create over 38 ingredients from food, and some of those ingredients are pure food. Some of them have integrated high-quality USP isolates into them. Some are built on Saccharomyces cerevisiae or yeast, so we're integrating our minerals into yeast. So we create our own ingredients. We then press our own pills, and then we put those pills in a bottle right there in New Hampshire and ship it off. So we're completely vertically integrated back to the farmer, which for me was a dream come true. And I knew about Mega Food when I was at Garden of Life because they've been around since 1973. And what I noticed at Garden of Life was when I went to see a retailer in particular, the retailer was taking Mega Food. They didn't sell a lot of Mega Food because it was hard to sell. It was hard, the company didn't do a very good job of making it easy to sell, but all the retailers took it because they knew how it was built and they really appreciated the technology that went into it. So when I was hired as CEO back in 2011, all I had to do was tell the story. All I had to do was kind of take the veil off and just show people what it is we do, and it's been a true blessing. So that's my background and kind of a little bit about who we are, and I gotta tell you, the whole concept of culture is one that I'm very passionate about. And I think it starts with the people in this room. So my goal today for this talk is to inspire you that culture is vitally important, that the marketplace is changing in such a way that it makes it even more important. And hopefully you'll start to kind of buy into that. And you've got culture whether you're intentional about it or not. But my other big objective today is to make sure you walk away with a few key examples or key thoughts that get you thinking about culture where you are. And so that you might be able to take it back to where you are, okay? Makes sense? So just to get a sense of it, how many docs in the room? Hello, doctors? And you guys run your own practices, correct? Sort of, yes. How many service providers, like really more service provider? Ingredients? Okay, ingredient supply, that kind of stuff. Branded manufacturers? All right. How many folks would say that you have significant influence in your company? You're a CEO, you're a VP, you've got significant influence in your company? All right, good. That's what I thought. That's what I thought. And even if you're here just running a team, you can build culture. You can build culture in your team. I've seen this happen all the time. A team within a company does so well with their team culture that it starts to permeate into the whole company. It happens all the time. So I'm hoping that this makes some sense. The other thing I love about this industry, and I was able to see it last night everywhere, and it's the reason I'm still in this industry 15 years later, is because I believe we're all in the business of improving lives. I don't meet a whole lot of folks in this industry that don't love the fact that they're in an industry that's about improving lives. In fact, on the bell curve, it's a very long tail before you find someone who's in it just for the money, especially the people that go to conferences, right? Especially the people that are here. So I love to just start off with a quick agreement that we're here to improve lives. So it's our mission, it's our stated mission. I would say that it's everybody's mission in this room, that we're here to improve lives. That's a big part of what we're doing and why we're doing it. And so that's the first IL, improve lives. And then one of the things that we've been thinking about as a company here recently is that it's not just enough to improve lives. Improving lives is really good, right? But if you can inspire others with the fact that you're improving lives, like I was inspired by the speeches yesterday. They're really improving lives, right? And they're out here telling us about it. And we're taking notes on it. And we're figuring out ways to apply that. That's inspiration. So the last IO there is inspire others. So improve lives and inspire others. It's my personal mission statement. It's the mission statement of the company. I think it's the mission statement of our industry. And I think if we can just all agree on that, it'll make this presentation make a lot more sense. Is that cool? Can we all agree on that? Elio? All right, good. So let's dive into some of the detail. Culture. Values-based brand comes from a values-based company, which to me is all about the culture of a company. The customs, art, social institutions, and achievements of a particular nation, people, or other social group. The attitudes and behavior characteristic of a particular social group. We all have culture, whether we want it or not. How many of you would say that the culture of your company was or is intentional? Good. You think about it, there's objectives around it, you're tracking it, it's measurable. That's awesome. And I would say, in my world of strategy, even at the IBM levels, when I was talking to IBM and McGraw-Hill way back when, it was never intentional. It just kind of happened. There was no strategy around it. There was nobody saying, we've got to get this done, we've got to do that from a cultural standpoint. One of the things that I would like for us to do right now is think about your company for a second. Go back to the office. And I want you to think about the one word, if there was one word to describe your culture, from an employee, from a stakeholder, what do you think is the one word that would describe the culture of your company? And write it down. This is important. I want us to be very intentional. And for those of you who said your culture is intentional, that word should come right to mind, right? It should be right there, all right? So when I started while you're writing your word down, when I started at FoodState, it was called Biosan at the time, and we quickly changed the name to FoodState. When I started at Biosan in 2011, the culture was very different. It was very entrepreneur-driven. And like a lot of great entrepreneur companies, the decisions get made at the top. And it has a lot to do with the fact that the entrepreneur has a lot of people they're responsible to. And they take that responsibility, they don't take it lightly. They really have to feel like they've got to make the decisions in order to do what's right for the employee. So what happens when all the decisions are made at the top is you get a lot of silos. You get a lot of people that keep their head down. They don't speak up. For fear of getting shot, and they never talk to each other. Operations doesn't like sales, doesn't like marketing, and while the previous owner did a great job in terms of building a good company, a great company that provided a lot of value for him and his family, the culture was 180 degrees from where I needed it as a CEO. Does that make sense? So the first thing I did was name our culture. And at the time, and this is branded as Megafood because we throw a big party around Megafood, but it was really the name and the brand that we gave our culture for the whole company, right? So we needed a name. We needed something people could look at and that we could clearly define our culture. And I'll talk a little bit more about this, about this video after, but this is kind of where we went.
It's funny that you asked that. People ask me all the time, what is Zing Mojo?
When I hear the term Zing Mojo, I think of a fun and exciting, changing, crazy environment.
I envision Zing Mojo as a bunch of people running around, but somehow managing to still accomplish a goal.
My name is Moonbeam. Zing Mojo. That's like...
To me, it means controlled chaos.
Zing gets me a little excited. It's that feeling when you drink like 5 coffees.
Seems out of control, but really at the end of the day, it all comes together.
That's like a whole bunch of craziness.
Zing Mojo means something very special to my heart.
To me, Zing Mojo's like getting your hair dyed. At first, it may seem really crazy and not be the color you're looking for, but after a few washes, looks great.
Zing Mojo. I think about that a lot. It all started when I was a child, growing up in the foothills of New Hampshire.
It also means that we're probably running in different directions.
Personally, it's the craziness that comes with everyday life.
A little chaos, but with no drama, which I like a lot.
If I could express Zing Mojo with a specific tone that best describes Zing Mojo, I would have to say,
Zing Mojo!
Zing Mojo.
Zing Mojo.
Zing Mojo. I get the jitters inside.
Zing Mojo.
Zing Mojo!
Zing Mojo.
Zing Mojo.
Zing Mojo.
Zing Mojo, baby, yeah.
That's a weird word.
Sometimes when you walk away and you hold your head and don't complain and then...
So at the time, we needed a change. We needed a spark. And maybe your company or your organization needs a change or a spark. And as the leader in your organization, I saw a lot of hands go up. You have the power. You can create a spark. You can define it. You are the leader. You can make this decision and define it. And we use this word to have some fun with it. We were about to put this company, I was about to put this company through some pretty major change, significant change. Think about a 180-degree turn on culture, very intentional. So we tried to keep it fun, light, in fact, we decided to throw a party. We threw a party for the community. We opened up our factory. We manufactured to show them how we could do it. We expected a couple hundred people to show up, and 750 people showed up. And we had local vendors and food trucks, and we had the local brewery. And quick story about the local brewery: they forgot to bring cups, and they manufacture in 32-ounce bottles. So instead of giving cups of beer, they were selling bottles of beer, and everybody's walking around with these Barney Rubble Flintstone-sized beers. It was pretty funny, but it was a lot of fun, and it got people engaged. But it also gave us an opportunity to define the culture that we needed to have in transition as we were transitioning from this other culture. And so these signs were everywhere back in 2011, right? So a state of controlled craziness that comes in a group of people who are in a hurry to deliver their mission of improving lives, often seen as pure passion, but never drama. We had a lot of drama at the time. Indicative of a whiteboard culture, figuring things out as they go. We didn't have the leaders in place at the time. We didn't have a good VP layer. We didn't have any of that. We were figuring stuff out and making decisions, and we had to get that down to the lowest part of the organization as fast as we possibly could. So we defined that. We defined it. We made it very intentional in terms of defining our culture. And it was indicative of what we needed to do, which was to light a spark, hair on fire. Our growth expectation was significant, and we couldn't do it without people buying into this culture. Now, did we lose some people? Yep, just like any bell curve. We lost 5 or 10% of the workforce that just didn't feel comfortable making decisions. They were really stuck in the, just tell me what to do, and I'm just here to punch a clock. That doesn't work, and I think Rob would tell you that does not exist in our company anymore. The whole punch a clock just here. Everybody that's here is here because of this. They buy into this. It's a part of who they are, and we've attracted the right talent, and we've lost some of those people that just didn't feel comfortable in that environment. And all that to say, it's very intentional. So, let's do another audience participation. What are some of the things it takes to build great culture? Anyone? I'm sorry? People? Yeah, absolutely. Probably the right people. Vision, communication, absolutely. Authenticity, sure. You can't fake this one. Respect across the whole company, absolutely. A great list, thank you. I've got a list of 7 things that I just want to run through with each of you today, and here's my list. We're going to talk about each one, right? I've kind of boiled down my view of culture to these 7 things. Intention, which we've just given a good example of, the Zing Mojo piece of that. And I meet a lot, especially young entrepreneurs who are still running their company or young companies that don't get that part. They don't get that part. It's intentional. It's very intentional. Commitment, ownership, reward, rhythm, training, and then reminders. So let's break this down one at a time. So starting with intention, everybody here has got a set of core values, right? For your company, for your organization. Yes? Everybody? Good? Yeah? Can everybody name them? If you were put on the spot, could you name your core values? I walk around with Dunkin' Donuts gift cards, even in my factory, and I say, if you can name all 8 core values, I got this great little Dunkin' Donuts. You know? So I bribe people to know the core values. It's very important, but these are our core values. When I first got there, the day I arrived as the CEO, I put whiteboards up everywhere. We put whiteboards up in the factories, we put whiteboards up by marketing, we put whiteboards up everywhere, and I went around and just started jotting down what I thought our core values were, what was important to us today. And then everybody slowly but surely started picking up the whiteboard markers and writing what they thought it was. And I basically asked, what is our culture? What is our core values? And people started writing it down. And over the course of about 3-4 months, we narrowed and whittled and got people involved from a committee standpoint. And this is what came out of it. It was about a 3 to 6 month process. And make it easy, share the love, do it right, value health and wellness, think like an owner, pursue passion, enjoy the journey, and be real. Rob, I think, would confirm for you, we use this all the time. In fact, we bring up this slide in every single meeting, every single strategic meeting. It's the first slide in every board deck. So our new board sees it, first thing they see. So we pound on this constantly. We also look for opportunities to celebrate that. It's very intentional. We've involved everyone, and it's not HR driven. It was never HR driven. It was never, ever HR driven. It came from the top, it came from the leadership, and it goes deep. The other quick tip that I would throw out to you, there's a guy named Patrick Lencioni. Is anybody familiar with Lencioni? I know Aaron is. Great guy, great author, very easy to read books, which I really love. I don't have time to read the tomes. But he created a process called The Advantage. And The Advantage is really his kind of capstone work. It takes all the different books that he's done, Death by Meeting, 5 Dysfunctions of a Team, and it's the capstone. It's called The Advantage. And we've integrated The Advantage into everything we do as a company. And it takes the whole concept of strategy. Everybody's heard of objectives and goals, metrics, tactics. What's the difference between an objective and a strategy? Anyone? I'm going to get 18 different answers is the point, right? And I used to do strategy work, and we had our process, and we had to define everything. What he's done is really simplified this down to 6 questions for a company. The first one is, why do we exist? And this is the innate playbook. This is our innate playbook. And it spurs conversation around culture. This is intentional. What do we do? And how will we succeed? Those are the 3 top questions. And that gets to kind of things like mission and vision and core values and what's important to the company. And this dialogue is ongoing. We have 8 playbooks that feed up to our master playbook. And one of those playbooks is innate response, which Rob oversees for us. But all the other departments, everybody in the leadership team has access to every playbook, and they can ask questions. So someone from our marketing team can go into Rob's playbook for innate and say, what does this mean? Can they leave a comment? And so we're constantly shaping and sawing against everybody's playbook, especially around things as important as why do we exist or how will we succeed? And so it allows for this open community to help one another to succeed and to really hone their messages, and it's constant, it's ongoing all the time. All right, so that's intentionality. Just a couple of tips there. One is use your core values everywhere. Another one is a great book called The Advantage, which kind of simplifies strategy. And if you haven't read it, I think you'd love it. It's literally a 30-minute read on the plane. It's very, very easy. Pick it up. It's an awesome book. Number 2 after intention is commitment. And to me, commitment must start at the top, and it's defined at the top. Rob could tell you what this number is, but I'm not sure anybody else in this room could. So instead of making you guess, we track a measure called Lives Improved, and we've created, since our mission is improving lives, we've created a method internally that basically builds off of revenue and units sold, and there's a calculation that basically gets us to a Lives Improved metric. So instead of just reporting our dollars, which we're an open book company, dollars, EBITDA, we share all of that with our company, but instead of just reporting dollars, we also always report lives improved. So number of times we improve a life. So this number, 2.187 million, is our target for this year. This is our target lives improved number. So it's a number that we've been able to create that gets everybody focused, not just on the revenue, and they all know the revenue, but it gets people focused on our mission. It gets people focused and committed to what we're trying to do, because we report against this number. And luckily through quarter 1, actually through April, we're ahead of our lives improved number, which is great. It gets people really bought in and committed to that particular number. And then the This number is the number we've improved since 1973. So we constantly are tracking that number as a way to really make sure we've got an easy way to keep people committed to the mission and to talk about it and to go deep on it every single day. Another thing I would say is that commitment means you're committed to your customer's cause, right? And what I learned yesterday about the burnout on the doctors got me thinking in a big way. If we're a company that's here for our customers, what's their customer's pain point? And one of our customers' pain point that I learned yesterday is about burnout. What can we do about that if we care about our customers? Another customer that we have on the mega food side is the natural retailer. And the natural retailer is really facing a significant issue here in the last 4 to 5 years, and I won't go into it, but Costco, CVS, Walgreens, Shaw's, all the grocery stores have got organic aisles, organic produce, fair trade coffee, you name it. So the natural retailer builds these little brands, and it's right, the little brands have still got to grow, so they go to grocery or they go to drug, and it's starting to hit supplements. It's starting to hit supplements, which is difficult for our natural retailer, which is Mega Food's core customer. It's one of their biggest pain points. So we launched a website called Combat Mass Slippage and a whole effort around it. And basically the website is all about supporting the natural retailer with best practices. We interview other retailers and get those retailers to share their best practices with their community. So we're building community, but it's purely from the standpoint of trying to help them solve their pain, one of their pain points. So it's organic, it didn't cost us a whole lot. Our graphic designer created the graphic, and we use Google Plus Community just as a way to kind of keep people talking, and we upload things all the time. But it's an easy way for us to recognize and say that we're committed to our mission so much that we're gonna step out and do something that's for you. It's for you and for your pain point. And it's just another example. If you think about your customers in a deep way, what's their biggest pain point, and what might you do from a cultural standpoint to show your commitment to that pain point? And through Rob, we've also launched the same thing through Innate, innate.edu. Another pain point we learned about yesterday is quick, easy lessons, right? We need quick, easy lessons, quick little pieces of content. And that's a big reason why Rob is here, because of his expertise in content and education and webinars and getting our thought leaders out in front of them. So that's a pain point, and we look at it as a pain point. And this is less about selling Innate than it is solving and being committed to that customer's pain point, being committed to that and baking that into our culture. Make sense? Easy stuff. And I'm sure a lot of you are doing something like this that shows your commitment to your customer. And this comes out in our culture. It comes out in our culture. Think like an owner. It's big. The other thing I would say is that this is me on a bull at our town hall. The commitment comes from the top. If number 2 is commitment, it all comes from the top. And if you're not willing to put it out there and show your commitment to the mission and to the core culture and the core values, then it's not going to sink in as deeply as you would like it to. So we throw town hall meetings every 6 months. They're typically very fun. It's either a rodeo theme. For our 40th anniversary, we did a big disco party, 70s disco, costume contest, dance contest, and Natty P's not here. Fran was here yesterday, but Natty P is also known for that. Natural Partners, the distributor in the space, is known for their culture and their parties. And so we have fun when we're together, but it starts at the top, and the commitment at the top is a big deal. I would always also submit that in this world where things are changing very rapidly, and I won't go deep, it's a whole other speech, but the millennial waste that's coming at us, the millennial employee, the next level of employee, 10 years from now, the vast majority of your employees are going to be millennials. And the millennials grew up, with devices. The scarier one I was talking to someone yesterday about is my 10-year-old daughter, who has never had a question that wasn't answered. Let that one sink in. If you've got younger kids, I've got 10 and 13-year-old daughter, they've never had a question that couldn't be answered. Oof, that scares the heck out of me. The ripple effects on that from a workforce standpoint are going to be significant, right? And so we all know the millennials. One study I saw said that millennials that were surveyed, 93% say they deserve their dream job. Whew, how do you manage that one, right? So the point is that the millennials, the younger folks who are on social, the folks who are connected can go deeper on a brand, and they're going deeper every single day. I'm a big believer that the leadership in your company needs to be out there, because people attribute culture, they attribute values of a company to their leader, to its leader. So I'm very active on social, The main reason I'm active on social, and this is Twitter, I do a lot of Twitter, I do a lot of LinkedIn. When I first started doing Twitter and LinkedIn, it was all about attracting great talent. Because I could care less how many followers I've got, but if I'm gonna interview someone, you can better damn well bet they're gonna go to my Twitter feed and they're gonna go to my LinkedIn feed and they're gonna learn about the company and see if they're connected. So the main reason I do Twitter and LinkedIn isn't to drive followers. Is to tell people about our culture, is to tell people about who we are and attract talent that wants to be a part of that environment. And if you're not doing this, I encourage you to think about it, because the next wave that's coming up, whoever's doing it, if your competitor's doing it and you're not, it's likely they're gonna get some good talent because that leader is telling people, this is how we do it. This is our culture, putting it out there, being transparent about the culture. If you don't do this, and I'm gonna do another blog here soon about the easy way to do it. There's an easy way to do this. It doesn't have to take every single day, but it's very, very important because of that transparency, that commitment to the core values, that commitment to culture needs to come out in all of this. And it doesn't have to be pretty. You just have to kind of do it. So a couple of tips on commitment, making a commitment at the top, really just kind of driving that commitment down into really building great culture. The third point is ownership. And real quickly, we have a group of people, and it was so funny. I had nothing to do with this, which was great. It was the day I knew our culture was taking. We had a couple of admin assistants come into my office and say, we want your permission to build a culture club. And I said, you don't need my permission. And so they ran with it. And they actually got together and said, our culture is so important, we want a committee on this, and we're gonna have fun with this. And they did, and they went out to every single department, and every department has a representative. I had nothing to do with it. It was great. They all come together and they think about the culture and what they can do to support the culture. Just one of the things they did is last year we launched 8 Woolly Pockets. These are wall gardens in New Hampshire. We did a couple of the YMCAs, the Boys and Girls Clubs, a couple of the at the local schools, but this was all them. They organized the volunteers. We had over 40 volunteers from our employees go out into the community, help these kids plant these gardens. It comes with curriculum and teaching. And the point isn't that we did the gardens. The point is that it took root. And we were allowing that ownership. We were allowing that ownership to happen outside of HR and to really allow that to really breathe and to grow from there. Spurred out of this, we're going to be starting a foundation this year, and our goal is to plant 50 of these gardens across the U.S. with our partner retailers. And that all started from 2 admin assistants who said we need to start Culture Club. So that ownership piece of that is just huge, huge. We think a lot about it from an innate standpoint. What's the doctor, right? We talk a lot about the natural retailer being the center for health and wellness in their community. That doctor is also a center for health and wellness in their community, especially the wellness part of that. So what are we doing to support that doc? What are we doing to support them in their community? Are we thinking about that? Are we thinking about how they might connect? For us, this is a great way for natural retailers in particular to connect with their community, and it supports them, and it kind of kills 2 birds with 1 stone, right? So that's one quick example of ownership around the culture. The Culture Club also drove the reward system. I told you that we do 2 biannual town hall meetings where we bring everybody in and we throw a big party and we update everybody on the business, our open book culture, et cetera. But also a big part of that is our Zing Mojo Awards. So we've created, one of the key concepts here is a cog. Everybody's familiar with a mechanical cog. A cog by itself doesn't move, it lays on the table. But multiple cogs together will move and move things. So that's why they're shaped like a cog. But each of these pins represents one of our core values. So the check is do it right. The balloon is enjoy the journey. The rocket is pursue passion. The mask is be real. So throughout the year, our culture club and anybody in the company can nominate anybody in the company for a core value. And so their boss has to approve it. But once it's approved, they then get a pin and they're recognized in front of everyone at the town hall. They're recognized for their contribution to the core values. It gives us another reason to talk about it. And people present these pins, very proud of them. I mean, they put them all over. And it's one of those things where it's fun to recognize people that are really supporting your core values and your culture in a deep way. Okay. Rhythm is the next one I'll talk a little bit about. I talked to you about those town halls every 6 months. We have virtual quarterly town halls in between, and video updates often. In fact, I just sent out a voice memo. This is another tip for you, especially if you're a leader. And it took me a while to recognize this, but I travel a lot. And when I'm traveling, I don't think about it. But what my assistant mentioned to me was, it's inspiring when you're out doing the things that you do. Let the company know. To me, that's not normal, but I can do. Everybody have an iPhone, pretty much? I don't know about the Android model, but if you've got an iPhone, there's a little thing on there called voice memo. Is everybody using it? It's an awesome tool. Awesome. So you just hit voice memo and you record. And just this morning, I'm like, here's what I did this week. We're talking about Transparency 2.0. I'm out at a conference. I'm really inspired by you guys. We're talking about culture. I'm going to be bragging on you. And I just sent that to every company employee to the distribution list. And those little things matter, and they're very easy to do. Very, very easy to keep your company culture, to keep them connected to your culture. It's very, very easy. The other thing that we've done, which I love, is we have a Google Plus. Everybody heard of Google Plus? It's not so great for social, but it's really great for internal company social because it can be confined and private. And it's to the point when we first started it where I was posting every day and just trying to kind of get things going. Now I might post what, Rob? I might post once a week, but there's how many posts a day? Many. 5 to 10 to 12 people posts a day. People just posting, letting people know what's going on. In operations, if we're running beets down the dryer, one of my ops guys will take a picture or a video of the beets, throw it on Google Plus, and now all the sales folks out in the field are like, cool, and they're like, commenting with each other. Google Plus Social for us has been amazing because it connects the company in a way and allows people to say, that's awesome, or thank you, or congratulations, and it's been fantastic for us. It's a very easy thing to implement. The leader can start it and kind of jumpstart it. Just post stuff. Take a picture. I take pictures all the time and just throw them up there, and it's a way to really drive culture that can be exciting. This is an example of our Google Plus post this past week. Kara is one of our admin assistants, and she posted bowling night. So Culture Club sponsors a bowling night once a year. In fact, they give out the bowling awards at the town hall, best and worst. And then, over here is a picture from James Doherty of I think it's Sweden, right? Was that a spa in Sweden? Of our innate products placed in Sweden. So now people can go, wow, we're in Sweden. Even the person on the line, we have terminals in all of the lunchrooms, so that the people that are working in the ops can go on and kind of catch up on the Google Plus. So it's a very easy way to implement a connection across your company. Even if you've got a small company, you'd be surprised how many people post, because most of your people in your company are posting anyway. They're posting on Facebook. They're used to it, and it's a way to kind of replicate that on your own in your own building. The sixth one is training. Also very, very proud of our FoodState leadership program. In 2011, I think it was probably December 2011 or January 2012, I decided to just do a book club. So I invited several of the young leaders to a book club around the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, which I think is kind of the core foundational book for any young leader, 7 Habits of Highly. And so we just started a book club. And it's easy to do, start a book club, right? Pick a book if you're the leader. Even on your team, if it's just your team, pick a book that has influenced you in a big way, and meet every week for 15 minutes or 45 minutes. For us, it's 45 minutes. It starts at 8:15 on Thursdays. It goes till 9 o'clock. That has morphed into what we call FoodState Leadership or Flight School, FoodState Leadership Training Flight School. And so for 2 years, it was all about going through books together, and we meet every Thursday. We give 45 minutes to leadership. It's now morphed into 3 different levels of flight school. We've got co-pilots, pilots, and Top Gun, so that we can now go deeper into the topics based on the leader's position in the company. So in co-pilots is like supervisors and managers, pilots is like directors, and Top Gun is really higher level directors that have got more responsibility, P&L, and it allows us to go even deeper. Now that took 3 years to develop, but just start a book club. It's an easy way to train your leaders, train your team on what's important to you. And you've all heard of the important, urgent quadrants. I think it's quadrant 2, very important, not urgent, right? Very important, not urgent. We see this as very important, not urgent, so it's got to be scheduled. And we give it 45 minutes a week, right? plus some homework. And all the homework is on Google Plus Community for Top Gun, or so we created another community for those leaders to post their homework. And you should see it. It gets deep, it gets emotional. It's a way to connect culture. It's really, really impressive and really going really well. So that's one example of leadership. Just another quick point on FoodState leadership. We define everything to drive our culture. We define everything. So what is a FoodState leader? Has their act together, works well with others, leads others, knows, plans, and runs their business, and lives the core values. So every training we do, we connect to one of those principles around what a FoodState leader is. So define it, define your culture, define what a leader is, define these things. And as a leader, you can do it and ask for help and continue to whittle on it, right? It can be very fluid. All right? So, and then last but not least, reminders. I mentioned times lives improved. We keep our times lives improved numbers in front of everyone all the time. We're in the process of buying a new scoreboard. We're going to put this over our fulfillment area, but it's going to track lives improved since '73. Last year, our target this year, and our year to date, just as a running lives improved measure. This is actually a very large scoreboard, so we're excited about that. It's kind of the baseball style, with the flipping numbers. So we're excited about doing that. All right. We remind people about our culture all the time, all the time. Banners, notes, voice memos. We are constantly working on it all the time, and I'm happy to say it's not just me. It's gotten to the point now where it's really spread and become very viral in the company. So that's my 7. Intention, commitment, ownership, reward, rhythm, training, reminders. These are 7 things that I think that hopefully you got some tips out of this. Can anyone think of the benefits of having a great culture or values-based culture that really seeps into the brand? The topic here is how this seeps into the brand, but I think you'd all agree that without having something behind the brand that stands for something, it'll never seep through the brand. It'll never really get and hit your brand until it's really deeply ingrained in what it is you're doing at headquarters. We do tours all the time, and when we bring in retailers or docs for tours to tour our plant, the first thing they say is, your people are amazing. I mean, because if you do a tour and your plant people aren't happy and they're not waving at people and having fun and joking, it's going to show, right? I mean, and that shows, through the brand. So we get that a lot in terms of, the whole concept of the culture really permeating through who we are and what we do. I know, Aaron, you guys have got a great culture, and some of the things you do, you should talk to Aaron about values-based ethical trainings, monthly trainings. What are some of the biggest benefits you guys have been committed to that for years. What are some of the biggest benefits you're getting out of that commitment to the culture?
I think, practically, I think it's just, you can move at a lot faster pace when everybody's pulling in the same direction. And, we get the same experience you just said. We do a lot of tours of our facilities. We get doctors that come in, and that's the first thing they comment on is just how the people are engaged, and everybody's pulling in the same direction. Yep. And I think you avoid a lot of, you started out with some drama and things like that. And I think one of the best things is just the way you can move, and you're not, there's enough battles out there to fight externally. You're not fighting a lot of internal battles, and there's a lot of value there. Perfect.
Anybody else getting some real benefit on the intentional culture you're providing? Go ahead, Missy.
I think the best thing is that problems get identified where they happen, and they get solved where they happen. Mm-hmm. We don't wait for something to go up to the next level, and then there's a lot of problems, as opposed to it's right there on the line. Right. And when we started recognizing those problem solvers and giving them that ability to be able to solve the problem, we saw a huge shift in the way that all colleagues, they were suddenly scientists and engineers. They may just be on the line, yep, but it's their line. So I agree. It's huge. It allows people to flourish, and the social component to me is big, because then you can call them out. You can call them out and reward them. Everybody says, thank you, that's a great job. And that encouragement that happens through social is fantastic. Go ahead, Dave.
I was just going to say, one of my favorite business books is Good to Great. Yep. And one of the concepts is the flywheel concept. Mm-hmm. And even though Dr. Supplement Store is a very small company right now, one of the things that we're working on in terms of culture is we call it being uncommonly good. And I started seeing that working when I started hearing other employees pointing out that's uncommonly good. We should post that on our uncommonly good board.
Right.
And I wasn't the one who said that, and it was very exciting. And I realized this is the flywheel. It's starting to turn faster, and it's being perpetuated by the employees and solely by the leadership.
Yeah, it's one of the best feelings as a leader is when it starts to work. It's huge. It feels amazing. Anybody else want to share some benefits? Or? To me, this is about baking these benefits. Building a great culture permeates into your brands. It permeates through the sales force. It permeates through the language you use on the label. It permeates through everything. So I believe that to have a good values-based brand, you've got to start with the culture of your company. That's the core. That's the core. Otherwise, with social media in particular, if you're trying to live something through your brand that isn't core to who you are, isn't a part of what your company is, it'll be shown. Big light on that will be shown immediately.
I think really, at the end of the day, culture is really your only differentiator. I mean, we can talk about raw material quality and quality in general and all that, and yeah, you have to make those commitments. But at the end of the day, your culture is your differentiator. It's the only thing that really can differentiate you from one organization to the other.
Totally.
And it's that important from the value you're talking about, putting time into that. That's why it is so important. Because it's really your only differentiator at the end of the day.
Totally agree.
I just a couple of thoughts. One is that, this same concept of building a healthy culture is what needs to happen in practices. Mm-hmm. And in fact, that's what you notice when you go into a practice, whether or not people feel happy, validated, affirmed, whether they believe in the treatments that they're performing, whether they believe in the practitioners, whether they feel that they're all in it together. So this same culture translates down into practice. The other thing that translates down, I think is really interesting, is the concept of commitment, because you've got that for the companies that are supplying products and services. You've got that within the office, but you also have that on a one-on-one with patients. I think that one of the most important things to always assess on a one-on-one with patients is to what extent are they committed to making a lifestyle change. And I've always asked patients to rate on a scale from 1 to 10 their level of commitment, and if you don't get an 8 or 9 or a 10, you've got to have them go back and rewrite that. Right. The other thing I'd like to just do is kind of give a shout out to you, because I did a lot of work on bad bosses and good bosses, and probably asked 10,000 people for a survey to think of the worst boss they've ever had and the best boss they've ever had. What the worst boss did, and what were the actions, how to affect attitude, competence, confidence, health of employees, and what were the best bosses. And the stories are amazing, because the best bosses bring out the best in people. And you seem like you've got the right traits and attitudes. And so just a shout out that if I went into your place, I'd probably have a whole bunch of people saying, you're the best boss I've ever had. Yeah, and that's the ultimate testament.
Yeah, thank you.
So I'm curious, this will be a question for you, but so, obviously business is probably moving at the fastest pace it's ever, just the change and all that. Mm-hmm. So you even pointed to hey, this is the important, not the urgent. So as a leader, how do you think about that as far as, you're trying to run a company, there's a million things coming at you at once. You can get very distracted. We just said culture is the most important thing. Mm-hmm. But when you get up today, there's 15 other things that you think you need to do. So how do you think about that as the leader?
We do quarterly, our executive team does quarterly retreats. And following the advantage model, which I really love. If you got to read this book, because it takes the whole concept of strategy and really boils it down. And one of the key things that the book talks about is a thematic goal. What's the thematic goal? And a thematic goal can have a 3-month time horizon, or it can have a year time horizon, for example. And our thematic goal for this year is to build trust, because we've got a new owner. So because we've got this new owner, we want to build trust with our key stakeholders. So it's building trust with our new owner. It's building trust with our customers to make sure they've still got our trust because of the new owner, because of this time of change. So through our executive strategic retreat, which rolls up, that's the guiding light for us right now strategically, is building trust. So out of that building trust thematic goal are 5 defining objectives. So one defining objective is hit our numbers. The other defining objective is to tell our story in a unique and bold way. So we've got 5 of those. So that's my filter. So when I get out of bed and I'm coordinating with my executives, it starts with that. It starts with that from a corporate standpoint. It gets ultimate clarity. And then what we've been able to do, which I'm very proud of, we have a leadership monthly. Our director team, it's about 20 people, gets together at our leadership monthly, and they've got to present their playbooks. And their playbooks have to connect to the ultimate goal of building trust. So all of their playbooks line right up with building trust. And then what are their defining objectives to do that? So it drives a clarity that's unheard of. I mean, it's really powerful, especially when you can get it one level down. And it's not just the executive team saying, this is what we're going to go do. When you can get those directors bought into it, it's huge, because now they're running the business. It's one of our other defining objectives, leaders run the business. So it's one of our very intentional things is to get our leaders running the business. So you asked, it's a long answer to your question, but to me, it comes back to what is our corporate objective right now? What's the the thematic goal of the year for us is to build trust.
Actually, you touched on it a little bit, but I was just going to say, in the face of a acquisition, what do you see as sort of the challenges and opportunities, attached to the culture that you've established?
One of the challenge is to make sure we maintain trust. I think I touched on that a little bit. I'm a big believer, and I tell this to young entrepreneurs who ask me my advice all the time. I'm like, build transparency into your company as fast as possible, because there's nothing like transparency to hold you accountable. Nothing like transparency to hold you accountable as a young entrepreneur, because especially as we all face the challenges, but even as a younger entrepreneur, the biggest challenges they're going to face is compromise. They're going to have to compromise to hit a sale. They might have to compromise to get that order out. They might have to think about compromising on quality in order to make sure that they hit the PO, because hitting the PO for a young company is vital, right? So, but if you build transparency into your system, you'll never have to worry about that, right? The ultimate accountability is allowing for transparency. So one of the first things I did when we were acquired was I did an hour online TV show, and it's still out there, with Carlotta Mast. Does anybody know Carlotta Mast from New Hope? She interviewed us and asked all the questions she had about the acquisition. And it was open, unscripted, and I was able to answer them openly and honestly. And that pulled the pin on the acquisition faster than anything, because our competitors couldn't say anything about us that I hadn't already said. But that transparency is still out there. So if Pharmavite were to ask me to do something that's not in alignment with what I said on that TV show, we've got a problem, right? It becomes my integrity. It's my integrity, it's the company's integrity. So to answer your question, I'm a big believer in transparency, and we're about to announce some transparency efforts that I think I'm hopeful will help the industry. And I'll share it with you guys if you won't tell anybody. But the whole concept of sharing our new product development process. So open book new product development, because we don't launch a lot of products that don't make it through our Q&A or R&D, and to be able to show the marketplace that can be powerful. That can be powerful, I think, in terms of showing people what it takes to launch a great product.
Robert, first of all, I want to say this is a great presentation. I'm
Thank you.
Super impressed. I have been to Natural Partners, and just had a great time there, and loved it.
Right.
And obviously you guys have a great thing going on as well. I originally in college was in part of a startup that was venture funded, and so we had this like great culture, but it was a small 10 people, and then got to right, exactly, 100%.
Yeah,
ping pong tables, tournaments, all the time, and I guess my question is, this year we all sat down and Jonathan made us all read a book by Simon Sinek called Start With Why.
Yep.
And I actually saw Simon speak in Boston at a marketing conference this past summer, and then he told everybody to read the book, and I was like, whoa, that's really random, because I'm like in love with this Simon Sinek guy,
Right.
And so we are trying to change our culture as a family-owned company, and it came from Jonathan bringing on family and friends to help him run the company. And so the culture at the beginning was just phenomenal, and you couldn't rival it with anything, right? Everybody was having fun, everybody really liked each other, and as the company scales and grows, it's really tough, I think, to try to keep what we had. So I guess my question is, there's a lot of great takeaway, but what is the one thing that would be an immediate thing that we could do that would just wow our employees? I mean, I think we have over 200 employees now, something like that, and in 4 different locations around the country. It's just we need to start bringing the community together a little bit more, and I'd love to hear what you have to say.
Well, it's funny you mentioned Simon Sinek. We saw him speak at MBJ a while back, and I'm a big fan. His latest book, Leaders Eat Last, is also a must-read. Really, really good. I think my answer to you would be it's intentional. It's intentional. The leaders in the company need to get in a room and figure out what we want it to be, and it gets back to the core values. So one of our core values is enjoy the journey. So we have a scorecard on our playbook. We call it the Uber playbook, which is the FoodState playbook. We have a scorecard that scores us on all of our core values. And so if enjoy the journey is yellow, we do a red, yellow, green, then when we come together at our quarterly retreats, why haven't we enjoyed the journey? Why is this yellow, right? So we're holding ourselves accountable to the core values, and it becomes very intentional. And we talk about it. We force that into our strategic planning process to make sure that we're very intentional about it. And one of the things I encourage my VP of operations, who's not very good at enjoying the journey, he's a detail guy. He's all about quality. He's all about 99.9% ship rate. He's not that great at enjoying the journey. But one of the things I've encouraged him to do is to find somebody in his organization that he can designate as the enjoy the journey czar, right? The party czar in ops, because we call it sweet spot. You got to find people who are good at it. And there happens to be an administrative assistant that resides in 11 Delta, our operations plant, who loves it. So we gave her a budget, $500, whatever, just a little budget, and she can go throw parties, find reasons to celebrate. But it's about flushing that down into the organization. But at the executive level, it's, are you scoring it? Is it intentional? And that's why I asked, at the beginning, is this intentional for your executive team? Is this something that you're making time for? Because I think most people would say that culture, things like this, are not urgent, but very important. These are the things that fall off when sales are lagging, or fall off when you've got an operational issue. It falls off because it's not urgent. This stuff is not urgent. Throwing a party for your employees is not urgent, right? But it's extremely important. So factoring that into the strategic plan is a big way, I would think, to help drive that.
Thanks. I definitely appreciate it. I'll try to make the trip up in 93 and come see you guys.
Yeah, come to the tour.
Robert, I wonder if I could ask you to talk about how you communicate and project values in the practitioner channel versus the consumer channel, since you're basically running 2 brands. How do you manage that?
It's a great question, and I think that the recognition is that we need to really understand that customer in a deeper way, and it's part of the reason why we're here, and it's part of the reason why we brought Rob in. One of the things we're centered on right now is marketing, education. Our marketing is our education. So our education site, our partnership with Dr. Tony Lodog, we've got several other bloggers. We're at the front end of our key opinion leader effort. It was a great talk. I learned a lot in that as well. But partnering with the right kinds of people that help us to present our brand is big on that. Would you add anything to that, Rob?
No, I would agree with that. I think the brands are different as far as who we target and who our customers are. But the mission of the company, it's going to resonate both with the practitioner and with the retailer. And so for us, it's really about telling our story about what we're doing, not so much about our products, but really about what we're all about and how we're doing it.
Our tagline for Innate is deeper connections. And so we talk about the fact that we buy from a farmer, the fact that docs have patients that are starting to ask questions about organic and non-GMO, and they've got these patients that are wondering this stuff. It gives us a big opportunity to be a thought leader in that piece of it. We're also very intentional with Innate not to be allopathic, or we don't want to be the solution to a problem. We really want to be more foundational. So a lot of the products that we focus on are more the foundational go-to product for a practice. We're also a lot smaller than a lot of the brands in here, so we can't necessarily compete with the big guys in that way. We don't have a direct sales force. Which, the typical model is direct sales force and new product innovation, and that's not us. We're not there yet. We're smaller. So we're carving out another niche, which is education, marketing, and inside sales, education through that approach. And also we want to be more foundational and not so much, claims and deep ingredients and that kind of thing, which we think there's a need for in the marketplace. And we also think the doctors can learn a lot about organic and farmers, and that story can play with Innate.
Any other questions or remarks for Robert?
I would just wrap up, if there's no more questions. There's results here. We've doubled our sales in the last 3 years. So, I mean, our growth has been spectacular, and I attribute it all of it, to building the right culture, to getting the right people in the right spots, to doing what we're doing, and the intentionality behind it. It's a big deal. And for us, it's helped us to grow our brands in a way that we're very proud of, and that speaks to our mission. And we all agreed at the very beginning that we're in the business of improving lives. The growth numbers are the growth numbers, but for us, it's about the number of lives, and we're improving each and every day. So that intentionality to the culture is a large reason why we're doing what we're doing, and the results are speaking for itself. All right?
Excellent. Thanks so much.